In this video, I'm going to show you how to do an oil change on this Hyundai Elantra with a 2.0 liter engine. Let's get started. Underneath the vehicle, on the driver's side, you'll see this cutout here, which allows you access to the oil drain plug. That's a 17mm drain plug, so take a 17 socket or wrench, break it free. Once you break it free, you should be able to remove it by hand. As I'm unthreading it, I'm holding pressure on it so that when it's on the last thread, it doesn't come shooting out. And when I'm ready, I'm going to pull it away and oil will go right into my collection bucket. While that's still draining, inspect your drain plug, look at the threads and make sure they're still good, and inspect this washer. This is more of a gasket really, and if it's in poor condition, replace it. You can reuse it a couple times, but eventually it'll start leaking and you want to put a new one on. This one's good, so I'm going to reuse it. Now let's remove the oil filter while the oil pan is still letting oil out. If you look in front of the oil pan, there's another cutout that you can reach the filter from. Put your hand up there. You may or may not need an oil filter wrench. If you do use one, make sure it's the proper kind that fits on there. As you remove the oil filter, some oil will come out. Let that drain a little bit and then remove it the rest of the way. Let that drain in your collection bucket. Now inspect the surface where the oil filter mounts. Looks good to me, so I'm going to wipe it off with a rag. Get all this oil off there. Doesn't have to be perfectly clean. But now we are good to install the new oil filter. What you want to pay attention to is that the old rubber gasket doesn't stick to the engine. If it is, peel it off. You don't want to double gasket it when the new oil filter goes in. I like to pre-fill my oil filters, or prime them if that's what you want to call it, and that entails putting some engine oil inside so that when the vehicle starts, it doesn't start up dry and it has some oil to pull in. Just fill it to the top and let it soak into the filter material. I like to also lubricate this gasket at the top here so that it can seal up better and it prevents it from getting stuck in the future. Now take your new oil filter, slide it up into position, thread it on. Make sure it threads on smoothly and it doesn't cross thread. Let it bottom out. Once it bottoms out, which is right about here, go between 1/2 and 3/4 of a turn. That's how you know it's properly tightened. Don't use an oil filter wrench to tighten it. I mean, if you have to, you have to, but make sure you don't go past 3/4 of a turn because then it will be over tightened. Usually you can get it by hand. And of course, wipe up your mess so that you don't confuse the residual oil for a potential leak in the future. Now it's down to a steady drip. It's going to keep doing this for a long time, so I'm going to call this done. Tap it off. Make sure this threads on smoothly. Before it's going to completely bottom out, I'm just going to wipe this off with a rag so that oil doesn't continue dripping underneath that gasket. And the torque for this is going to be 25 foot-pounds. There we go. If you don't have a torque wrench that can do this, that's not much. It's about 1/8 of a turn after it bottoms out. Now up top with the hood open, you can see the engine oil dipstick. Pull that out and just set it aside. And right over here is your oil filler cap. Remove that. And we're going to add 4.2 quarts of 5W30 engine oil. So I put 4 quarts in. This is going to be the last 0.2, so just under 1/4 of a quart. Usually oil bottles will have a measurement on the side where you can take reference of how much you put in. Right about there. If you go a little bit over, that's okay. I'm holding it just about flat right here. So as you can see, I put 0.3 quarts in. That's fine. Nothing bad's going to happen. You're better off being a little bit over than a little bit under. Now that you're done, put the oil filler cap back in. This one ratchets so you can't over tighten it. And now we're going to check the engine oil level, wipe off the dipstick. Because the engine has not been turned on yet, it will read a little bit high, but that's okay. If you want to turn it on first, that's all right too. Dip it down all the way, pull it back out, don't wipe it off this time. And as you can see, we are right above the hash marks right here, so we are perfect, good to go. If you are between these two, you're all set. Now mine is a little bit over because I haven't ran the engine yet, so the filter is only half full. The engine has minimal oil throughout it. So that's why it's reading high, but if you already ran it, it should be between these two. Between the low and the full should be almost 1 quart, so if you need to add more, that's what you would go by. Now if you have an oil change reminder built into the vehicle, go ahead and reset it. If not, put a sticker on your windshield and take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.